Hello, my name is Sophia Ponce and I'm a middle school student in Ohio. I play competitive soccer and I hope to continue to play as I get older. I love hanging out with my family and friends and I really enjoy going camping and spending time outdoors. Today I have the privilege of interviewing Erin Bender as part of our Dream Video Role Model series. We chose Erin as a role model to feature because she's a positive, dynamic female leader in Central Ohio who has already accomplished so much and inspired many at her young age. Erin grew up in Marin County, Ohio on a small farm. Spending time in 4-H and exploring her outside world, she ignited a love of and respect for the environment and all living beings. In 1996, as a senior at Ridgedale Local Schools, she earned a full tuition scholarship to Wright State University at the annual State Science Day. After graduating from Wright State University in 2000, where she majored in environmental sciences with a concentration in natural resource management, she went to law school, inspired by a college professor who was an environmental attorney. She wanted to help drive policy and decisions to protect our world and its resources. Following law school, she married her high school sweetheart, Dustin. She went on to practice law at a patent and trademark firm in Reynoldsburg, Ohio, and became co-owner and operator of CABB Farms in 2006. Her farm is a 60-acre farm that specializes in natural grass-fed and finished Angus and American Aberdeen cattle and hay production. After purchasing the farm, Erin spent the next 10 years also working for the Ohio State University's Office of Technology Commercialization. For 2 years of that time, Erin was the Director of Licensing for the Physical Sciences, where she was team lead and relationship manager for the agriculture and veterinary medicine teams, and served as Vice President for Ohio State Innovation Foundation. Erin accomplished this all while having her 2 children, managing the farm, and working full-time in the Columbus area. Erin then went on to become the founding executive director of Otterbein University's The Point in 2016, a 62,000 square foot building that combines engineering and design classes, art classes, a makerspace, and is home to several innovative businesses. In 2017, within a year of starring as The Point's executive director, Erin earned the Westerville Area Chamber of Commerce's Young Professional of the Year award. During her first few years at Otterbein, Erin secured a $200,000 nationwide foundation grant to provide underserved students in kindergarten through 12th grade with the opportunity to attend STEAM-related summer camps for free. She also earned the Young Cattleman's Award, has been the keynote speaker at the Columbus Chamber of Commerce annual meeting, is Morrow County's Cattlemen Association Director and experiential learning facilitator for her local 4-H camp. Hi Erin, it's an honor to be with you here today. We have chosen you as an example of a positive role model for all the Ohio kids and teens watching the Dream video series. How does that make you feel?
I'm excited to be here. I'm honored that I was given this opportunity to be a part of this great organization and opportunity to talk to students about the Dream program and how I was raised and the things that are important to me.
Did you have any role models growing up? If so, what qualities did they have that you admired?
I did. I had quite a few role models. I think the first thing that was really important to me as I was growing up was the love of lifelong learning. For me, being a part of a group or an organization that really focused on learning and being able to see that through my mentor's eyes and the lens that they carried was really important to me. I had several role models when I was growing up that were in my school district or teachers or coaches, and they always showed that love of learning to us as we were either on the sports field or in the classroom. And I think that has always carried with me. The other thing, one of my mentors when we were growing up was from 4-H. He was our 4-H extension agent. And he had 2 rules. Rule number 1 was be nice. And rule number 2 was don't break rule number 1. And so I think that has always lived with me. And it was a way that we learned about leadership. It was a way that encouraged us to be great people as we were growing up through our 4-H experience. And I think those 2 things, the love of learning, really learning about being kind to one another, but also learning about how to work on a team together. The kinds of things that you experience through sports, athletics, and through 4-H programs like that are just opportunities for you to learn and grow as a person. And I think having those experiences growing up really enabled me to end up in the roles that I have had today.
It sounds like you had a great support system growing up, several great mentors, and you had access to some great resources to get you where you are today. In your position now, you can help connect students to some opportunities they might not otherwise have. What are your suggestions for kids listening who might be lacking those opportunities? What advice would you give them as to where to start in their community?
I think the first thing that I would tell kids is to start where you're most comfortable, right? Sometimes it's with your parents. Sometimes that's with a church. Sometimes it's with a 4-H group. Sometimes it's with your athletic teams. Sometimes it's just with an older student who's a peer mentor of yours. But I think being comfortable with the individual and thinking about being able to ask the right questions. So being comfortable enough to say, I'm really interested in learning more about an activity or a project or a program, and finding the right person. And the person that you go out and ask first may not be the right person to help you. And so it's important to find somebody you're comfortable with asking that question, looking for that advice or seeking out that resource. And then once they've identified with you what you're looking to do, maybe they can direct you to the next resource. And I think it's all about being willing to ask the question. You know, there's never a wrong answer, and taking that first step and being energetic and excited about what it is you're passionate about and finding those individuals that share that passion, that will help you along your way. And I think opportunities come in so many different ways, even when you're not maybe looking for them, right? And so I guess I would tell students and kids to not ever close the door. Be open to what comes in your path, because you never really know what the journey is going to take you.
A few years ago, I proposed to my school an idea of having a conservation club to help create sustainable habitats for bees. Your passion for protecting the environment and working for all the greater good of people is very inspirational to myself and others. Why are those ideals so important to you?
So I think growing up on a farm really connected us to nature as kids. We didn't have a whole lot of choices of things to do. Cell phones weren't a thing back then, and so gaming systems, that was a privilege to have something. And where I grew up in the outside of Marion County, we really spent a lot of time outside. I can remember very vividly as a young child, my mom would, get us up in the morning and we'd go outside and she would say, we'll see you at dinner time. And she would put our lunch out on the back porch for us. And it was sort of like known that you figured it out. You went outside and played, and we, picked up rocks and we skipped stones and we did all the crazy things that kids may have not ever experienced before now, because we had the opportunity. And we chose that path for our children as well. That's the reason that we chose to go into farming, is it brought us the ability to, when you have to take care of something because it's relying on you to feed it, you feel the sense of connection to the land. And I think, we always wanted to make sure that our animals were cared for, but it made us responsible. It made us love the outside. Even in the wintertime when it's cold and no one wants to go out there, I can remember loving going out into the barn and just seeing the horses and being a part of that, and seeing how things were different during the different times of the year. The grass is green and it's growing, but then other times there's no grass and you're thinking, what's under there? And so I think that part of life really led me to the love of sciences. I've enjoyed being outside. I always have, in the car, watched nature go by and the different, and I can only imagine if we lived somewhere else where there's no real change in the weather, how different that would of an experience it would have been. But I think in Ohio, we have this blessed opportunity to just see all the different seasons, and to watch even dogs and cats go through those different seasons. If they're, sometimes you open the door, your dog doesn't want to go outside because it's cold, right? Imagine if you had to live outside as a cow or a horse or something. And so watching their bodies change was always so fascinating to me as their hair grew. And it was just an amazing opportunity, I think, for me to love the land and all the things that it brought to us. You could see, the garden grow, and then you got to eat the food that came from that. And that part was so fascinating as we were growing up, that I think it just sort of led me down this path to always want to care for not only myself, but the animals and things that we loved.
What advice would you share with our audience about following your dreams and having goals?
I think they're two different things, right? Having a goal is something that you say, I'm going to aspire to achieve this, and here's the way I'm going to do it. You're going to kind of set that path in your mind, right? But I think dreams are really the things that you are passionate about, the concepts and ideas that you want to follow in your heart. And so goals are a way to get to that passion, but passion is a way, and dreams are a way that you can really be fulfilled. And I think that if you can combine those two things and you can have this dream and it becomes your goal, it's an amazing opportunity in life. You know, when I was growing up, I always said I wanted to be a farmer, you know, but I also wanted to be a scientist. You know, I've done those things. And I think that being able to combine that and really focus on the natural ideas of life and all the things that the world can provide you, you know, we've accomplished a lot as a family, you know, and I think that being focused on your goals, and those things are going to change over time, right? Your dreams and ideas and passions may never change. They may be the same forever. But those goals and tactics that you're going to use to accomplish those goals should change, right? Because you're going to be in a different place in your life as you continue to grow, and you're going to want to continue to change those goals and to reach higher and make new ones. And I think that, you know, as you continue to get older, you'll start to see where your passion and your love of something really starts to collide with the other things in your life, your education. It will take you down this path that enables you to create goals that are realistic and things that you can achieve. But then sometimes you got to create goals that you might think are really hard, right? Hard to accomplish. And it's important to have those as well. And I think that what we've been able to do as a family here and what I've been able to accomplish in my career is great. But it's also the passion and love that I have for the farm has really motivated me to be successful in my career.
It sounds like you had a pretty typical upbringing, but you still have had adversity in your life. What advice would you offer on how to overcome some of life's setbacks, how to create grit and resiliency?
So, you know, I can come at this from a couple of ways, right? We were not very well off when I was growing up, and we lived on a farm, and I had a great experience growing up. I loved my family. We had everything I could ever have thought I wanted. I didn't really know that we didn't have a lot of money growing up, so that was awesome because we just made up games and we did things the way we thought was normal. But I think that, you know, as I got older and into high school, I realized that if I wanted to be successful in my career and be able to go to college, I had to work really hard because scholarship was important to my family for me to be able to go to school and do the things that I wanted to accomplish. And so I did that. I worked hard in my science fair project, and I was able to get a full tuition scholarship, which was fantastic. It was amazing. And I had a great experience when I was in college. I think that once I got into my career, I chose a career where it's very difficult for women to succeed. You know, going into a hard science, and then going to law school, it was a challenge. You know, it was a very male-dominated world, and I think there were so many obstacles and barriers that I ran into that I, at the time, probably didn't recognize were even barriers, because I guess I was kind of always that strong personality, very confident in what I knew, and was not afraid to really talk and give an opinion. Sometimes that's great, sometimes that's not welcome, right? And so I think that those barriers that I felt then as I moved on through my career was really about my gender and trying to understand how to navigate this world in a career that was very male dominated. And I think that what I learned is that no doesn't always mean no in the respect that it really in your career, it's a new opportunity, right? I had the door shut on me a lot when it was, you know, I wanted this advancement or I wanted to understand this skill. And when I was, you know, told, we're not really quite think you're ready for that. You know, it just made you work harder and say, well, I really think I am. And I didn't take no for an answer. And I always worked hard to say, okay, well, what's the next step to get to that opportunity? And it would force me to really create new goals. And I think that's the thing that you have to really do, regardless of what the barrier is, economic, gender, race, you know, whatever that is. It's really about identifying those opportunities and really thinking outside the box. You know, that's really what has led me to where I'm at today is being creative and being willing to speak up in the crowd. You know, if you're sitting at the board table and it's all men around you, you still have to speak. and make sure that your voice is heard, because everyone's experiences in life are different. And having this sort of monotone response to a problem or an issue gives you a monotone answer, right? And so what we're looking for in this world is really the eclectic voice of everyone at the table and what we bring. You know, it's interesting when I talk to people at my work, even today, you know, we have 100 head of cattle or more. And for people to hear that, you know, I was delivering a calf in the morning before I came to work, you know, people don't have that experience if they've only lived in the city. And so for me to be able to share that little bit of information about, you know, a life being brought into the world is a different experience for them, but it helps them to understand sort of where my creativity and where my love comes, you know, into my role in my career. So I think it's just really important that you be willing to share and to be open to what others are sharing with you.
Do you think being like willing to share will like help them like respect you and like get to know you as a person that could like help you like in the workforce?
Absolutely. I think the more, and it's not about sharing personal things as much as it is about being open to sharing. Sometimes it's the challenges, right? Sometimes it's being open to share where you're struggling. And where you're having trouble, because what I tell people that work with me or for me is, you know, bring me all those challenges. Let me help you to see through, right? Sometimes it's just you have such a narrow view because you're in the thick of it that you sometimes can't step out and see, you know, the wider picture and where there is an opportunity. And I think it's important for people to just be open to that and to be open to what people are feeling today. I mean, we've lived through an interesting time. And so everyone kind of brings that with them. And it's important to just be open to where people are at the moment and be willing to work with them and help them to navigate that.
You are a mother to 2 children. You have animals and land to take care of on their farm daily. You commute to work an hour away. You're involved in your community. You're obviously very busy. You probably feel a great deal of negative stress at times. Can you tell us some healthy ways you have learned to cope with stress over the years?
Yeah, I tend to work. And I mean that outside. I tend to come outside and, you know, find things. There's always something that needs to be accomplished on the farm. So it's sort of tackling that next project. And that's how I exercise. I don't have a formal exercise plan. I get a lot of walking and exercise and lifting bales of hay and things like that here on the farm. And so that's where I tend to spend my time. Of course, I love to watch movies and I love to read books and listen to books. And that really helps me to sort of escape to someplace else, right? Listening to a book or reading a book really gives me that opportunity to go somewhere else. And that is really, I think, another way that I enjoy de-stressing. Of course, ice cream also helpful.
We all love ice cream. You sometimes hear about people using drugs or alcohol as a way to cope with stress or setbacks and losses in their lives. That can lead to trouble with breaking laws, substance use disorders, damage to your brain and body, and even death. How and why have you avoided turning to substance use as a coping mechanism during times of stress and adversity?
I think for me, you know, when I was growing up, my mom was a school teacher in my school district. And my dad was president of the school board at the time. So I didn't really have a whole lot of choices to sort of step out of line. But it was never really attractive to me either because, again, we had animals who depended on us to take care of them. And if I was, you know, under the influence and not able to do that, something else, you know, could have happened. The animals could have died. They could have gotten out. They wouldn't have eaten. There's so many things that could have happened. And I just didn't have that luxury to not have something depending on me. And I think that piece growing up has always lasted with me. You know, alcohol for me has always been just a social engagement, nothing more than that. And I think that I was able to avoid, you know, going down that path of negative use because something was always there. Even when I, you know, lived not on a farm and I was in college and law school, I always still had some responsibilities. You know, when I was in college, my horses were still with my family, but on the weekends I would go home and take care of them. And so there was always this desire to make sure I was, at my best all the time. And I think that was what was motivating me to stay out of that lifestyle and to not use that as my stress release. Law school was hard. And it's a difficult time in your life. And what I found was that we just spent our time with friends. We would find great activities to go to not have to think because you had used your brain all day and you were so tired that we would go to movies or we would go and play putt-putt golf or something fun because we were so tired from all the work we had done during the day. And so it didn't become an attractive release mechanism for me. And I think that has been true, growing up as well. Is there was too many other things on the line to kind of go down that path. And I found other ways to cope with stress, exercise or taking care of my animals.
What made you decide that participating in drug use and alcohol misuse were not smart decisions?
My dad was in a band when I was growing up, so there was, alcohol around when we would go watch him play in the band. And as a young person, you still understand what's happening, I think, and see behavior that you may not like, and see behaviors that you're sort of curious about, as a young person. And I think that I saw enough of that, and I knew that I wanted to be good in the activities that I participated in, whether that was 4-H or athletics, basketball, track, those kinds of things. And so it didn't seem like something that made sense to me. And I can remember, just growing up, there was probably opportunity. I don't know. I guess I just never found it. I made sure that I stayed in my friend group, and our friend group was really focused in athletics and 4-H, and I showed horses during the summer, and so I didn't really have a whole lot of free time to do those sorts of things, I guess. And living in the country, I'm sure it was prevalent and around us as we were growing up, just as I'm sure it is today with my kids. But there were a lot of conversations growing up with my family, and we talked about how, what the effects are if you choose to go down that path. And really, that piece, I think, always stuck with me. It was sort of, if you want to have a better life for yourself than what we have today, or you want to be, if you want to be a lawyer, you want to be a farmer, you want to be a doctor, whatever that is, you have to work hard and be, your best all the time. And that's really what motivated me to stay away from those types of opportunities when I was younger.
Finally, what is the greatest advice you can give to kids and teens out there that have dreams and goals that they want to accomplish?
I think the first thing I will tell people is to not be afraid to fail, right? The motto we use at the point is fail fast, fail forward, because it's important. Failure, you can learn just as much from failure as you can from success, and probably more, to be honest. There are lots of things that I can point back to and say, wow, I really messed that up a lot. And that moment enabled me to, figure out the right path or the right answer to the problem. And I think that, people need to be willing to be authentic with themselves, be honest about what happens and the choices they make, and be open to the failure, because, we try to, today, I think we spend so much time focusing kids on successes that we forget that there's so much failure along the way to get you to that success, that we need to celebrate that failure. We need to celebrate the fact that we're learning as we're failing, and that it's just as important to work through that, because that's where you find sort of the outlet and you get to that success. And I think that's the one thing I would encourage kids today, is to just really be open to the opportunities that come your way, and be willing to step outside the box, right? A lot of times, that's another thing that we spend a lot of time working on, is when it comes to innovation and it comes to new thinking and new opportunities and new ideas. In the patent world, when I was writing patent applications, the first idea is never the one that becomes the product. it's usually the 77th or the 1000th, right? There's so many iterations to an idea before it becomes the thing that is awesome and on the shelf. And you have to go through that process to get there. And I think, if kids can have the luxury and be afforded the luxury to try and fail and try again and pivot and change and do things differently, I think that's where the creativity, the excitement about learning, the excitement about new things really comes out. And that's where that grit and determination and resilience really bleeds through. Because if you stop after the first failure, then what, right? I can always remember saying when we first started riding horses and you get bucked off or you'd fall down or something, it was sort of you got back on the horse. That's very true, right? The minute you didn't get back on the horse because you were scared was the minute you stopped riding. And so I don't know how many times I fell off my horse, but I got back on every time. And the same is true in life. I mean, you're going to get knocked down, but you got to be willing to stand back up and say, I can do this. And sometimes you can have people that you can rely on that will help you. And sometimes it's just got to be you to decide, this is really me. I want to take this opportunity to do the next thing and to be great.
Thank you so much for your time today and for sharing with us more about yourself.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to meet you, and you did such a great job interviewing me, and I'm very excited to see the outcomes of this interview. I appreciate it.